Okay.
That's not we came to bed.
Now it's time for class.
my turn?
Now it's time. Can you hear?
Yeah.
Okay. And should I? Okay, go ahead, Mama.
Well, I was not gonna talk. But Julie says I should, so. So I was putting my mascara, I quickly wrote something. Of course, then it was too small. I couldn't see it. I said to Dave, could you enlarge it? So I want to welcome all of you tonight. And I'm gonna try and be cool. Because it took me too long to put my mascara on.
It's okay, Mama.
I'm okay. I'm a tough lady, honey.
We all know that.
My daughter, the book, our life, our pain, being exposed. It's all very emotional. But as I said, it took me too long to put my mascara and I don't want to have black tears. So those of you who read the book would understand when I say that the book had such impact on people. I've had people call me saying they're laughing, crying. It speaks to them. Some of them went as far as saying reading the book changed the outlook of life or something. They finally felt being seen and understood. All of us go through life sooner or later with some pain. And we bury it. And it's not being seen. And I guess being seen by other people and understood means a lot. I know I'm one of those that chose not to. And anyway, Julie's book, I think helped some people to get in touch with their buried pain and with their own truth. And at the end of the day, we're kind of universal. So that's why the nucleus of this evening, because quite a few people said to me, give me Julie's cell phone number. I want to talk to her. Well, I cannot get to talk to Julie. So I can give you the phone number, but it's on silent. My aunt called my daughter the Velvet Heart. And she is. She's also strong, caring, and wise. Being a private kind of, and you have to forgive me because it's kind of mishmash, because I did it while I was doing mascara. Because Julie said to me, you have to say something. So being a private kind of a person, originally felt conflicted about our family exposure. This book being published exposed our pain and breaking heart. But this book is more than that. Realizing the impact that it had on people is amazing. And I'm not exaggerating. Any of you that have not read it, go on Amazon and just see all the, what happened. I don't talk loud enough? I've been told I'm pretty loud. Okay.
Dad, can you hear? Dad,
No?
Dad. Dad, can you hear? No, you can't hear, can you?
You can't hear me?
There's a microphone.
I'll have to do it 3 o'clock at night. Okay. Okay. Anyway, so I lost my space. Well, I'm almost finished. So I can't tell you how sometimes proud and amazed we are by Julie. We've known her. I knew she's damn good, but it expands my heart to see her depth, which I always knew is there, but to see the impact on other people, that's really, I think it's the end of the day, and she has the gift of being able to absorb people and then reflect it back to them. And I think so that's it. Anyway, at the end, I don't know if Julie's gonna do it or but I have to just go on there. Those of you who have not read the book, go on Amazon and you'll be amazed. to see-
Spoken like a true.
No, I read it first and I thought, wow, do those people know you? I couldn't believe the reaction of strangers and then will do a little bragging. She also, People Magazine just published the 30 best books of, that were published in October. That they chose the 30 best, and out of the 30, number one was Julie's. And Clinton and Cher and all 28 others that were in, Jesus, I'm feeling like I'm in an electric thing.
Okay, good. You're done.
Okay, I'm finished.
Okay.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming and I appreciate it and it fills my heart to see you all. Okay.
Thank you, Mama. Well, I didn't want my mom to talk just to like brag about me, but thank you, Mom. I just,
It's par for the poor.
Yeah.
I left it to the
yeah,
end.
yeah. So Julie Crop is my best friend since we were 16, and what we thought we would do is have a little bit of a Q&A, and I'll do, can you just raise your hand? How many people have actually read the book? Just so, oh my goodness, okay. Okay, okay, right, okay. And so I'll do a short reading and then a few questions, and then if people have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, so I'm just gonna start, first of all, it's such an honor to be here, with everyone tonight.
Wait, Dad, can you hear? Julie has handed. I can tell he can't, he's lying. I can literally tell he's lying.
You got the thing on you.
Okay, sorry, guys, but my dad just, I need him to hear.
What?
Anyway, so I
Wait,
don't,
wait.
do you want us to say?
Yeah.
Do you want to say something? Dad,
What?
did you want to say
You
something?
wanna say something?
Yes.
Yeah, you can, I want to, not particularly. But I was instructed to. Now, the instructions started with a piece of my apparel where Mimi instructed me to wear my
Right,
fancy tennis shoes.
or at least socks.
I did.
Like who?
I did. Wait a minute, it's not worth arguing about. So anyway, when I first heard about the writing of the book, I thought to myself, oh Lord, it's gonna pierce our family because it's gonna be very revealing and show all of our failings and problems. But then after I read it, I started to think about reading the book, and I thought it did upend our families. Not secrets, but things we would have rather kept public. But after reading the book, I thought, hell with it. The book is worth everything that we had to endure, which wasn't much. But the specter of it was much. But anyway, it's a great book. Julie is a great writer. And she said her writing is above anything I would have expected, even though we exchanged correspondence for 20 years. But it was just surreal. And I'm sure people that have read it would agree. So anyway, we're proud as hell of Julie. And while she spends a lot of money, we're so free.
I don't know how to follow that, but I just want to say what an honor it is to be here tonight. Not only have Julie has been my best friend for 42 years, but Jack and Pella have been my parents, my second parents as well, for as long as I have known Julie. So I can't say enough good things about the family, and I'm just so glad that Julie brought this book into the world. Because for me, while the story is really one of her family's journey, it's really much broader than that. It really covers universal themes that affect everybody: love and family and connection and loss and parenting. And I mean, I could go on and on and on about all the things that it covers. But it really covers what's most important in life, which is connection, and how to really drill through all of that and get to the connection, which is what makes everyone the most happy in life. And I think it's a book that everybody can relate to, but not hardly anyone. I don't think anyone else could have written. And so, you know, while it's a universal book about something that we all feel, it's something that I think only Julie could have written, because she requires an incredibly special person who really has the keen ability to understand the depths and the meaning of life, and the depths of relationships and emotions, and can also then translate that into both, you know, through the insights and her sensitivity into something that's not only serious and insightful, but also laugh out loud funny, which is a true gift. And I think that's what makes it so relatable for everybody. And when you go, like Paula said, you go read the Amazon reviews, it's universally, they almost look identical to each other. It's as if somebody sat down and wrote them, but they're not. They're all original, and they all say, this book changed me. This book affected my life in such significant ways. I'm able to view and see things in my life that I never saw before. It's just pretty incredible when you think about it. So I'll read a brief bio of Julie, and then we can go from there. So Julie Fingersh is a writer, a journalist, and an author. Julie's personal essays, editorials, and reporting cover wellness, parenting, adult children, cooking, and how to lead a more sane and meaningful life. Her work has appeared in the New York Times, Oprah Magazine, San Francisco Chronicle, the Huffington Post, the Miami Herald, and of course, most importantly, the Kansas City Star. Her Substack newsletter, which is Take My Advice, I'm not using it, is a midlife sequel of an award-winning humorous column that she wrote in New York City in her 20s for Billboard publications, and Stay is her first book. So as I'm sure you're all aware, getting an agent and a publisher in your first book is nearly impossible. I mean, it's one of those things that people sort of laugh at you when you say, I'm gonna write a book and get it published. But Julie did all of those things. And not only did she do those things, but she also, as Paula said, did them with such acclaim. So she not only is in People magazine, she's listed, but she's also, her books have been devoured by some really famous authors. And Gretchen Rubin, whose parents happen to be here tonight, she was in my class at Sunset Hill, who's now a famous writer. She said that the book is profound, funny, and masterfully told. And Anne Lamott, who is a award-winning author, wrote, "Stay is so rich, wise, funny, and beautifully written, it's hard to put down once you start." So anyway, I hope you take some time, like Paul said, to really look and really not only read it, but really see the impact that it's had on people's lives, because I think it's what you really want out of writing a book. I know it's what Julie wanted, not only to tell her story and her family story, but to really impact people and help them better understand mental illness, chronic disease, how to connect with people, how to love, how to raise children, etc. So now, Julie, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then I'm going to open it up to everybody else. So first, just provide us with an introduction of the book and delve into some of the themes that I think are important.
First, I just have to say that this is overwhelming and surreal. And I'm having, I'm on this book tour, and this event was overwhelming to think about. I don't know, today I was like running and like having a small breakdown and being like, why am I having a breakdown? And then I thought, well, it's just, I am so overwhelmed by the love of my parents, my brother, who never asked to relive this and did this for me. And I think when when I first started the book, it really wasn't meant to be a book. I was just going through something that I didn't understand, and writing was kind of the only way. I mean, I didn't even know if I could write anymore. It had been decades since I did. But the only way I thought I could find out what had happened to just the trajectory of my life, and that I didn't understand. And when it progressed and life happened and these other things happened, that's almost asked to be written with our daughter and connected back with Danny and what my family had been through, I went to, my parents and Paul somewhere along the way, because I really hadn't planned to have it be a book or try to have it be a book. It was really just like with like my writing partners and just a cathartic thing. But I asked, and I just think, it's called Stay, a story of family, love, and other traumas, which is supposed to be ironic. It's very funny. Like some people get that joke and some people don't, but I just, I think about how they both, I remember a conversation I had with my dad. I go, Dad, but I mean, how are you going to feel? How are you going to feel about, and he goes, fuck it. You write what you want to write. Now, I know anybody who knows my dad can recognize that. And when I said to my mom, are you sure? Like, are you sure? My mom is the most private person. And she was like, Bubby, this is your story and you just do it. And they didn't ask to read it first. Nothing. And my brother, who is also not one to talk about, inner private things. And I guess I'm overwhelmed with how powerful love can be, and so grateful that they are able to, to me, it's like a heroic act of love. And my hope my hope, and like this book took 6 years to write, it was just almost killed me. And my hope really was to make it something that was way beyond my family, that's something that people could, it was like a platform of, when you try to get an agent or a proposal, I know this wasn't your question, but here, I have ADD, so is like, you're supposed to have like a 2-line summary of your book. And I was kind of like, well, that's just not gonna happen, because it's like, how Seinfeld was like, it's about nothing. Well, for me, the book was like, it's about everything. It's about everything. And I just stuck to that. And I am so glad that like somehow it worked. And I have to say that Gretchen Rubin was so incredibly, the world is like, it's all, it's very much in these kinds of things. It's sheep, frankly. And it takes one person who has a platform who sort of like sanctifies what you did. And it was Gretchen. And because of that, I think it gained traction and is where it is today. But anyway, I guess what I want to say is this event tonight and seeing all of you here, a lot of people here I haven't seen since Danny's funeral, I think, when we were so blindsided. And I guess I just, like, I did this for my own healing initially, and then now the next step was to bring light to my family and to Danny and to bring him back into the world, because he didn't get a voice in the end. And I wanted him to have that. And I hope I did it. And I hope that, my mom, I know anyone who knows my parents are gonna be like, that is absurd. But my mom's like, she didn't think she was a strong person. And it's like, is that a joke? Are my parents like the strongest people anyone has ever? But anyway, I just am so appreciative that you're all here tonight, and you were chosen to be here, and there's a reason every one of you are here, and thank you for being here. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna read, because a lot of you have read the book, but just to kind of as a setup, and then we'll just have a few questions, and then if people have, I don't want to see, my dad might give me the hook. Dad, can you, because usually it's like I have 7 minutes and then I have my breath in like 6 minutes.
Disconnect his hearing aid.
Yeah, Dad, can you hear? Dad, can you hear?
Some of it.
Some of it, all right, it's gonna be, okay. So. I know this sounds fishy coming from the author of a memoir, but I don't like talking about myself. I figure I'm with myself all day long. What I want to know is, what about you? That's always interesting to me. I'm also a little phobic about all eyes on me because I was raised to believe that personal privacy is sacred. What happened to Danny, which is how my family often refers to my little brother's life story, has always been private. It was a 14-year odyssey that began 40 years ago, but few people will have known about it until they read this book. Any reader whose family member has coped or is now coping with any kind of serious personal struggle, mental illness, medical illness, addiction, will understand all too well how this could happen, how a story like this one could unfold year after year under the noses of everyone around, including closest friends, extended family, neighbors, roommates, and coworkers, without their knowledge and without anyone in the family turning to them for support. People walking a path of living with or supporting loved ones who struggle will also nod their heads and understand why this would happen. At the time, we fervently believed that keeping our family's privacy airtight was best for everyone. Mostly, we thought that we thought we were protecting Danny. We were certain that one day he would find his way to the other side of his struggle, and we wanted him to be able to return to life free of baggage, without the weight of judgment from everyone, from friends and community members to potential employers. No doubt it was simply easier for us if people didn't know what was happening. We didn't know what was happening. And since to the outside world, we were the kind of family pictured on a Raisin Bran box, our odyssey was easily concealed. Things like this did not happen to people like us. No psychiatric hospitals for us, thank you. And by the time things became serious, our thinking was that most people were just making conversation when they asked about how Danny was doing or where he was living. Who wants to have a bomb dropped at a tea party? Then, decades later, a different something happened, but this time I wasn't a sister, I was a mother, and it was my own child whose life suddenly careened off track. Like Danny, it was a confusing, scary reality to navigate, let alone talk about. The path forward seemed obvious in the exact same way. This is no one's business. It took life throwing brick after brick at my head to finally realize the profound and generational cost of family secrets. That's why I wrote this book. But I need you to know this is my story. It's extraordinary enough that my parents and older brother gave me their full and loving permission to write what they knew my soul yearned to understand the only way I knew how. In return, I've done my very best to share my heart without exposing theirs. My brother Danny's part in Stay is for everyone struggling to help loved ones plagued by mental illness and to light the way for those of us left behind if the battles are lost. Our daughter Jessie's part in Stay is intended to give voice to the legions of people who cope with the isolating, often invisible veil of chronic medical illness. And my part in Stay, my wrestling match with the empty nest, midlife ghosts of buried dreams, the twin pillars of self-judgment and fear, while you're holding it in your hands. May my family's story entertain and inspire you to perhaps look at your own life's trajectory and path forward with new eyes. So that's just to like sort of set the stage, and I already feel time is are you bored? Are people looking at their watches? Okay.
So what made you write Stay at this point in your life? Given that the years have passed and.
Yeah, so I think that for me, what happened was, I think for a lot of women who devote their lives to raising their kids, it comes at a cost if they leave the workforce. And I think for me, it's a privilege, and it's a privilege to have that choice, but it comes at a cost. We're not supposed to talk about it because it's a privilege in this world, but it comes at a cost. And I think that when Jessie was a senior in high school, I was, like all of our friends, you're sort of, you're supposed to be happy and so filled with pride for your kids, and you are, but you're also grieving because this part of your life is over. And for me, I think it was this moment where like I had my head down in my world, and then I sort of I picked it up and realized like decades had passed and I had sort of abandoned the kind of self I had been at Jessie's age of being a writer, and I didn't understand why. And I think I felt like I had to try to figure it out. And so I did. So I took I signed up, just coincidentally, I found out about this writing retreat, and right as I was about to set off on it, and we were taking Jessie to school to Northwestern to drop her off, she got sick. And we thought it was, they said it was gastroenteritis. And long story short, it turned out that she was presenting with ulcerative colitis, which is a very severe chronic illness. There's a spectrum, it's very unpredictable. And I think that desperation of wanting to help her and wanting to figure out, wanting to just fix it, it was so reminiscent of all the years of Danny, and living with him and wanting to help him. And it just sort of all converged and really like I think I wrote it to try to understand what was happening, but those three, what's wrong, Dad? What's happening? Dad?
Nothing.
Okay. So anyway, that was the impetus.
So another theme that's in the book that I think is really interesting is parenting adult children. So,
Mhm.
you know, we all know about parenting small children, but parenting adult children and the sort of the juxtaposition of wanting to keep them close, but also knowing that we need to let them be independent, and especially in light of a child getting sick and wanting to
Right.
help them even closer. So, you know, to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, well, I think are a lot of people parents in this room with adult children? Yeah, so I think it's funny because not a lot is written about that part of life. Like there's all these books on parenting young children, but then like no one tells you about the part where you're supposed to be letting go and how you're supposed to do that. So I think that, and then for us, there was Jessie becoming sick, like there was just no roadmap because we were supposed to be letting go. And yet she was sick, and yet she was 1,500 miles away. And so I think it was, I mean, my journey is totally not unique. It was just figuring out how do you do it while, like, why do you give to your kids? Do you give to them because they need to be given to, or because you need to be needed? And there were all these questions.
No, I'm good.
Got you, Clay. Here, put your hand up.
And so anyway, so I think it was just
Oh, excuse me.
it's okay. It was a an exploration of something that I think is that we all grapple with. I was gonna just read this one paragraph about Sam when he was a sophomore, and this is just an adult, a thing that I think any parent might relate to. So besides learning how to knives around and do explosive chemistry experiments in our kitchen sink, Sam was growing up in a way. More and more, we occupied the same space, but lived in parallel, each tending to our outer and inner lives. Eventually, my anxiety about our slow drift apart would kick up enough of a storm to cross my consciousness. Sam, I'd call with sudden urgency from the kitchen. Yeah, he'd call back. Oh, sorry, Sam. Sam's online. Don't be upset with me. Yeah, he'd call back and I'd hear the tone. Can we talk? I'd ask, fake nonchalant. About what? He'd ask. Always kind Sam, trying to be nice. Anything? I'd say, trying to dress up my longing for the good old days with sad humor. Come on, Mom, he'd say, irritated by my immaturity, but guilty about the truth it implied. There was no going back. My role in Sam's life had shifted from primary to pastel, and the reality seeped into my psyche like ice water in a hot bath. The days of being the emotional center of my children's world had all but vanished. Conversations and outings and long-held routines of walking together in the neighborhood or going out for a treat had been washed away by YouTube, Family Guy, friends, and homework. It was hard not to yearn for all those years of Mama, come cuddle me. Mama, do you want to play with me? Mama, look, you never really think that one day your kid is going to stop asking for you. And then they just do. After all those years of me saying just 1 minute, I felt the sting of time and how it had reversed our roles with a cruel irony. Just a minute, he'd always said to me now when I called for him. I knew that our growing irrelevance in our child's lives was a sign of a solid foundation. I knew Dave and I were supposed to be happy and proud, and we were. But also, just as it had with Jessie at this age, the passage of time moved the three of us into a space where the rules changed by the day. There were no stormy fights and no declarations of independence. Instead, sheer instinct propelled us into a slow and visible march through a training ground for less intimacy, less ease, and less connection. It all made me profoundly, heart-hurtingly sad. The increasing shift also underscored the importance of me getting my own shit together so I would not end up like one of those needy mothers who endlessly pined for their kids' attention. And Sam, since you're watching, I just want to say I got my shit together, so you don't have to worry, because I'm really happy with everything. And if you're lucky and you do it right, then your kids are okay, and then you get to just enjoy the next stage. So I feel like this is going so long,
I know.
and yeah,
And I
Is it-
remember you telling me, just so I never forget this.
yeah,
When I dropped my kids off at college and I was sobbing, and I mean, thinking about it. I was sobbing, thinking about dropping my kids off, sorry, from college, and Julie called me up and she said, whatever you do, don't show them that you're crying. And I never forgot that.
yeah,
I marched off into the bathroom and.
yeah.
So do you want to just, I think we'll skip one of the questions and just maybe go to, one of the favorite parts of the book was the cover. And I know dragonflies have played a really big role in your whole family. Since
Yeah.
Danny passed.
Yeah.
Do you want to just talk about that and then maybe a little
Yeah,
bit
we'll
about
take
what
a few
staying
questions
means?
if you, yeah. So I want to show you this. This is so. The truth is, and this is, I talk about this in the book. I was not a big spiritual believer, I think, before Danny died. My mom was, and I think when he died, she became more so. And one of the things that happened on the day he died was there were all these dragonflies that were on the windows, like inexplicably. And my mom, saw them as a sign. And I think at the time, my feeling was, I was so grateful that she had something that she was connecting with, that it was like a sign that our family was going to be okay. I still feel that way. But I think as years passed and I kept seeing these dragonflies, it was really hard to, deny that, like, it just, how do you explain it, And my mom always said, we don't know who knows, who's to say, who's to say? Why do we think we know everything? And so I have to tell you this, I mean, this isn't in the book, but I'm gonna tell you the story. So when I first started writing this book, first of all, the idea of writing a memoir was like anathema to me, because if you know my parents, you will know that, like, we don't talk about it. Modesty is very important. And so when people would be like, oh, so what are you up to? I'd sort of be like, oh, well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Because I never really thought, well, first of all, I was embarrassed to write a memoir. Like, who am I? Michelle Obama. Like, who cares about my life? Like, who cares about, and then people assume a memoir means, like, you would say to people, oh, I'm writing a memoir, and people would be like, oh, so you're writing your life story, and you're just like, no, I'm not writing my story, because I realized, like, my life story isn't that interesting. But so I went to this writing retreat, and we had to write the first 30 pages of what might be a book. And at the time I was like, please, let's just, like, I've never written 30 pages of anything, we'll see. And I met this woman who, this was the second writing retreat, and we were driving to Denver where it was being held. And she said to me, we'd been in touch because we had to write these 30 pages, like, before the retreat. She said, Julie, I had a dream last night of your book cover. And I was like, what are you even saying? Like, why are you jinxing me? Like, I don't even know that it's embarrassing. And she's like, just let me tell you, it was so vivid. It was a white cover with a single dragonfly on it that was blue. And I was like, Nancy, that's very nice, but let's never talk about this again. This is like totally jinxing everything. And we arrived at the hotel where we were checking in. We look, and there's a painting of exactly what she had described. And so it was like, first of all, I was like, oh shit, like, I guess I have to write the book. Like, this is, Danny is showing up here and saying it. But yeah, so I think that to me, and then I'm really lucky that my publisher, who's used to publishing academic books and doesn't realize that they're supposed to not ask your opinion on anything, and they were just like, so what do you want? And I was like, turns out I know exactly what I want. Please let me talk to the designer and specifically do every single thing. And they let me keep the title. This was the title that came to me that I wanted. And yeah, and so this is it. And what I don't know, I mean, in terms of what the title says, I feel like not, I've said this before, but it's like, I'm not like Taylor Swift. I'm sure there's probably not that many Taylor Swift fans here, but she does these things, but I know there are a few Taylor Swift fans. Or she does these things called Easter eggs where she like drops these hints. And I just, again, in publishing, they want you to just spell everything out for everybody. And I was kind of like, sorry, I'm not doing it, because to me, it's a very profound, that word stay means something to me and to my life, and it has changed over time. And so my answer to that is like, it's going to mean, if you read the book, I hope that word is going to mean something to you. And so that's where that is. And the dragonfly to me is a sign of wonder, and that we don't know everything. And that, as my mom says, life is ongoing. And yeah, and also just before we open up to questions is I just want to say, because you didn't ask me this, but I'm asking myself this. In the marketing, they talk a lot about family secrets. And I guess I just want to say that's a marketing thing, because again, they like need to make it very sizzly. But our family it wasn't like, oh, this is a secret. It was a natural it was a natural urge to protect our family. And I think, but everybody is different. And for me, what I found was that it's really easy to live a double life and to have like the person you are on the outside be the whole thing. And for me, it was, kind of carrying that part, like moving to California. One of the reasons I think I did move is that I didn't have to have that past. And I wasn't the sister of Danny, and I wasn't, I got to start over. And there was a relief in that, but it ended up catching up with me, because when you only share part of yourself, you end up losing access to you. That's what I found for me. I'm not saying for everybody or the rest of my family, but for me. And I guess my wish for anyone who reads it, and for the people in this room, and for my family and my parents, is that everybody has to walk their own path with privacy. But one of the things that Jessie, our daughter, said in an interview I did with her, I know probably not a lot of people are on social media, but one of the things I did was interviews, and they're on my website, juliefingersh.com. And I would encourage you to watch that interview, because Jessie is 26 and she is so wise. And one of the things she said was, when she got sick at first, again, she was like, I don't want this. Like, I don't want this known about me. She was like a new college student. And if people had met her 2 weeks before, they would have seen the other Jessie she'd always been, who soared, who was the top of her class, for whom life was so easy. And all of a sudden she was like the girl who was in the hospital the first week of school. And so first she didn't share it. And I think that writing this book, and obviously, she was a very big part of writing it. She helped me sequence it. She's like watched so much TV when she was sick. She like understands storytelling. She really helped me. But I think one of the things that helped her about the book is being able to choosing to share that. And she says in her interview, there was a point where privacy crossed a line into loneliness. And to me, I can see it in this world today, being Jewish, the anti-Semitism, and not talking about it, and how lonely that can feel for us, for the people who are in a world where suddenly everything is changed, for aging, and how hard it is, for illness, for all of it. And I know, like, even tonight, so many of you have come up to me to share your stories. And I guess everyone has to be different, but I guess my experience, having been someone who never taught, who chose very carefully who I would share anything to, did I trust them to care enough to listen or remember or help? Is that you do, when you are willing to be real with people, what you find is that it's a relief, not just for you, but for them, because it's an invitation for them to be real too. So, not to preach, but, okay, any questions? Before anybody has to start, Marilyn?
Can you give us an update on Jessie?
Oh,
I knew it, and I wish I had that in the book.
yeah, thank you. She's great. She's a second-year law student at Emory. She's like one of, 6 people who are gonna be in public service and make like $10 a year, of course. She just argued a case and got the 67-year-old man who'd had a 20-year sentence free, off on parole so that he could be with his family. So she's doing really well, but her illness is really part of her life. It's a daily struggle, and like it is for anybody who has a chronic illness. But I think she finds that being open about it with her friends in a way that like integrating that part of her life has been like really, really helpful. Carol.
When did you start thinking about writing this book? When Jessie got sick? That's when you thought about writing this book?
Really it was, I had signed up for this writing class before Jessie was supposed to leave for college, because I thought, okay, I'm like a writer who hasn't written in 30 years. Can I write? And so I signed up for this class. And so that's when I started writing, but it really wasn't until Jessie got sick that I started. It really weirdly just felt like this is too strange that right now, as I'm trying to launch my life again in the way that I did when I was a senior in high school, and then Danny got sick, that it was like, it was happening all over again. And what were the lessons, like in my memories of Danny really flooded back of like, that just those years of trying it wasn't my parents, like just what can we do to help and try to save him, and then trying to like bring those lessons into my current life so I could be a better parent for Jessie.
But writing about Danny,
Yeah.
didn't, maybe you thought about it, honey, but so when you went to the retreat.
Yeah.
Did you have the book in your head thinking?
No,
You're gonna wait until, okay.
Yeah, no, what's actually was interesting, but I wrote like 7 drafts of the book, and it was not for a year until it was like a year into it, maybe my second draft, where my writing partners, because I have writing partners, and they were like, it was really just about me and Jessie. And then they were like, it kind of seems like you're leaving part of the story out. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, that's the subconscious, like, I didn't really quite even get it. And really until I worked with a developmental editor who pushed me to be like, what are the connections here? It's so amazing how your subconscious fools you into not really realizing what's real and what is driving you. Yeah. So, yeah.
So it sounds like there's a pretty interesting backstory in terms of how you get a book written. You explained why you wrote it, you talked about, but how did you get somebody to read it and actually decide to publish it? Because we know that that's a challenging deal. In case I want everyone to write my own.
Okay, you probably don't because it's hellish. But so it depends, because once you write a manuscript, like once my manuscript was done, and I had and so 7 drafts, I started working with I hired what they call a developmental editor who helped me to like, if you read the book, you'll see it weaves in and out. It's very like connected. There are themes and the arc of each character, the dog, all these different themes. How do they weave? How do they resolve? And And then after the manuscript was done, you have to decide, are you going to self-publish? Which I just knew I couldn't because I just haven't, there's no way I had the executive function to do that. Or are you gonna try to do traditional publishing, which is like, you know, like a traditional publisher? If when you do that, then you have to write a book proposal. That's like a business plan. That's like 80 pages. So that took like a year and I had help with that. And then you go and you try to, if you're lucky, you have someone like Gretchen who's willing to read it. And if, you know, you get some endorsements. And then once you have the backing of someone who is already established, then it's the agent search. I don't know, that was a year of pitching agents. I probably pitched 70 until I found one. And many people, especially for memoir, don't get them because memoirs, like it's the publishing industry is so different now. Like they don't, you know, again, unless you're like Kim Kardashian, nobody really cares. So but the agent, I think, connected very personally with the book. And then the publisher, who's Roman and Littlefield, who was bought by Bloomsbury. So they're an academic publisher primarily. And in a way it was really, you know, it's again to like wonder and magic. And I said at the beginning, at first it was like, all I want to do is finish the book. If I finish the book, that will be such a feat, no matter what happens to it. And then it was like, okay, I guess I'll just try to get an agent. And then once I got it, was like, it was a risk to do a traditional publisher, even if you got it, because they do change it. You know, most people who write books, their book is, you know, I have a good friend who wrote a book, like her book turned out, not the title she wanted, not the ending she wanted. It was very, you know, it was chopped up. And I think because I got this academic publisher, it's a large Roman and Littlefield, their mission is serious nonfiction. And I think they saw it as part of a mission, you know, that it's a serious book that was categorized almost as self-help. And they, like I said, like my editor, just like, she didn't even know that she was supposed to change it. She was just like, looks good to me, you know, you did 7 drafts, that's good. So anyway, so that process of agent and publisher took 2 years. And then, or maybe a year and a half, and then it was a year before it was out. Yeah, so it's long.
Talk me out of that.
Yeah, definitely don't do it. Wouldn't recommend it, honestly. Anything else? Oh, God. I'm not even thinking about that now. Thank you. I think right now my Substack newsletter is like columns, and I may do like a book of essays. But my agent retired because agenting is like a horrible business. So now I have to find another agent, which hopefully will be easier now. Yeah. Yeah. Was there something, Todd?
So I really, as somebody who has adult children,
Yeah.
really connected with the idea of you at this age.
Yeah.
Thinking about what is the relationship and how that evolves. And so I'd be curious to know, and you have nieces and nephews, so it's not just your 2 children.
Right.
Have you gotten feedback from that generation about the book and what that's meant to them?
Interesting. Well, I'm not one to push the book. I mean, I don't think well, no, I guess a couple of my nieces have read it. I don't think most of them have.
Okay.
So
Jessie read it.
Jessie read it. Yeah, Jessie read it. I think it helped her a lot. I think it's hard for the family, as you can imagine. It's a lot of stuff they don't know. But I guess the one thing I can say about that I learned from writing it and living it is about the idea of a blueprint, that you create a blueprint for your relationship with them, and that it can change. And I told the story, I think I told the story in the book, and Dad, don't worry, because we're about to be done, is that, you know, my dad, the blueprint in our family was, my dad would take my brothers on fishing trips. No one ever questioned that. Like, he was the dad and they were the brothers. I never questioned it. And then when I was like in my 40s, I was like, why was I never on any of these things? Like, why did I never? So I remember being like, I was like, Mom, it's so unfair. I have children, I'm still like, it's so unfair. And so I called my dad and I was like, Dad, I want to go to Vegas with you. And he's like, what the hell for? You know, I mean, he just like, what, why? What are we gonna do there? You know? And we went for, I don't know, many, many years together, and we had the best time. And that was the change of our blueprint. And my mom and I also started going on trips together. And so I think that what I've learned as a parent and as an aunt and as a cousin is that you have to be, it's your choice, and it can change how you relate to the people in your life. And it's just, sounds like I have it all figured out, but ask anyone close to me, I'm a wreck a lot of the time. Right. So, okay, is there any last question? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I know they don't want a thank you, but to my parents and brother. And that one, Dave Rednick, who has had to suffer endlessly through the 6 years of this. Thank you all. And I know some people brought books and I'm happy to sign, and I'll just stay right here.
Thank you.
And I think there's dessert and sorry if it went, I hope it didn't go too long, but oh well. Okay, thank you.
Oh, beautiful.
Julie, where are you gonna be signing? Up there?
Thank you. I'll always have the memory of being drunk in Montana and talking to you guys writing the book. Do you remember that?
Remember that?
It was.
Reading that part.
Totally. I called you guys and I was like, getting drunk by myself writing.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.